New Keynesian economics is a school of contemporary macroeconomics that strives to provide microeconomic foundations for Keynesian economics. It developed partly as a response to criticisms of Keynesian macroeconomics by adherents of New Classical macroeconomics. Two main assumptions define the New Keynesian approach to macroeconomics. Like the New Classical approach, New Keynesian macroeconomic analysis usually assumes that households and firms have rational expectations. But the two schools differ in that New Keynesian analysis usually assumes a variety of market failures. In particular, New Keynesians assume that there is imperfect competition in price and wage setting to help explain why prices and wages can become sticky, which means they do not adjust instantaneously to changes in economic conditions. Wage and price stickiness, and the other market failures present in New Keynesian models, imply that the economy may fail to attain full employment. Therefore, New Keynesians argue that macroeconomic stabilization by the government using fiscal policy or by the central bank using monetary policy can lead to a more efficient macroeconomic outcome than a laissez-faire policy would. New Keynesian economists agree with New Classical economists that in the long run, the classical dichotomy holds, changes in the money supply are neutral. However, because prices are sticky in the New Keynesian model, an increase in the money supply, or equivalently, a decrease in the interest rate, does increase output and lower unemployment in the short run. Furthermore, some New Keynesian models confirm the non-neutrality of money under several conditions. Nonetheless, New Keynesian economists do not advocate using expansive monetary policy for short-run gains in output and employment, as it would raise inflationary expectations and thus store up problems for the future. Instead, they advocate using monetary policy for stabilization. That is, suddenly increasing the money supply just to produce a temporary economic boom is not recommended, as eliminating the increased inflationary expectations will be impossible without producing a recession. However, when the economy is hit by some unexpected external shock, it may be a good idea to offset the macroeconomic effects of the shock with monetary policy. This is especially true if the unexpected shock is one like a fall in consumer confidence, which tends to lower both output and inflation. In that case, expanding the money supply, lowering interest rates, helps by increasing output while stabilizing inflation and inflationary expectations. Studies of optimal monetary policy in New Keynesian scheme models have focused on interest rate rules, especially Taylor rules, specifying how the central bank should adjust the nominal interest rate in response to changes in inflation and output. More precisely, optimal rules usually react to changes in the output gap, rather than changes in output per se. In some simple New Keynesian scheme models, it turns out that stabilizing inflation suffices, because maintaining perfectly stable inflation also stabilizes output and employment to the maximum degree desirable. Blanchard and Gawley have called this property the divine coincidence. However, they also show that in models with more than one market imperfection, for example, frictions in adjusting the employment level, as well as sticky prices, there is no longer a divine coincidence, and instead there is a trade-off between stabilizing inflation and stabilizing employment. Further, while some macroeconomists believe that New Keynesian models are on the verge of being useful for quarter-to-quarter quantitative policy advice, disagreement exists. Recently, it was shown that the divine coincidence does not necessarily hold in the non-linear form of the standard New Keynesian model. This property would only hold if the monetary authority is set to keep the inflation rate at exactly 0%. At any other desired target for the inflation rate, there is an endogenous trade-off, even under the absence of real imperfections such as sticky wages, and the divine coincidence no longer holds.